Chapter 2. The Service of Thespis. As André-Louis sat down to breakfast with them behind the traveling house, in the bright sunshine that softened the cold breath of that November morning, he thought they were an odd yet attractive crew. An air of joy filled the group. They acted as if they had no cares. They joked about the struggles of their wandering life. They were curiously but pleasantly artificial. They were dramatic in the way they handled everyday tasks. Their gestures were exaggerated, and their speech was stiff and theatrical. They seemed to belong to a separate world. This world of unreality only became real on the planks of their stage, under the glare of their footlights. A strong bond of friendship connected them. André-Louis cynically thought that this harmony might be the cause of their apparent unreality. In the real world, greedy ambition and the constant drive to acquire things prevent the kind of friendship that was present here. There were exactly 11 of them, 3 women and 8 men. They addressed each other by their stage names. These names indicated their specific character types. The names never changed, or only changed slightly, no matter what play they performed.
We are
Pantaloon informed him.
one of those few remaining loyal bands of real actors who uphold the traditions of the old Italian commedia dell'arte. We do not burden our memories and dull our wits with the stiff phrases produced by a wretched author's late-night writing. Each of us is effectively his own author as he develops his assigned part. We are improvisers from the old and noble Italian school.
André-Louis said.
I had guessed as much when I found you rehearsing your improvisations.
Pantaloon frowned.
I have noticed, young sir, that your humor leans toward the sharp, if not the bitter. That is fine. I suppose it is the humor that matches such a face. But it may lead you astray as it did in this case. That rehearsal was a very unusual thing for us. It was necessary because of the acting inexperience of our Leander. We are trying to train him in an art that nature forgot to give him for his current needs. If he continues to fail to live up to our teaching, there will be trouble. But we will not disturb our current harmony with the unpleasant thought of misfortunes that we still hope to avoid. We love our Leander despite all his faults. Let me introduce you to our company.
He then proceeded to introduce everyone in detail. He pointed out the tall and friendly Rhodomont, whom André-Louis already knew. Pantaloon explained.
His long limbs and hooked nose were his outward qualifications to play roaring captains. His loud voice has justified our choice. You should hear him roar. At first we called him Spavento or Epouvapt, but those names were not worthy of such a great artist. Not since the superb Mondor amazed the world has such an arrogant bully been seen upon the stage. So we gave him the name of Rhodomont, which Mondor made famous. I give you my word as an actor and a gentleman, for I am or was a gentleman, that he has proven us right.
His small eyes beamed in his large, swollen face as he looked at the man he had just praised. The terrible Rhodomont was confused by so much praise. He blushed like a schoolgirl as he met André-Louis's serious gaze.
Then here we have Scaramouche, whom you also already know. Sometimes he plays Scapin and sometimes Coviello. But he is mostly Scaramouche, and I must tell you he is best suited for it. Sometimes he is too well suited, I think. He is Scaramouche not only on the stage, but also in the real world. He has a talent for sly plotting and a knack for stirring up trouble between people. He combines this with a bold aggressiveness when he thinks he is safe from revenge. He is Scaramouche, the little skirmisher, in real life. I could say more, but my nature is to be charitable and loving to all mankind.
Scaramouche snarled.
Just like the priest said when he kissed the serving girl.
And went back to eating. Pantaloon said.
You will notice that his humor, like yours, is bitter.
He moved on.
Then that rascal with the lumpy nose and the grinning country face is, of course, Pierrot. Could he be anything else?
The rustic young man said.
I could play lovers much better.
Pantaloon said scornfully.
That is the delusion suited to Pierrot. This heavy, thick-browed ruffian, who has grown old in sin, and whose appetite grows with his age, is Polichinelle. As you can see, nature designed each of us for the part we play. This quick, freckled rascal is Harlequin. He is not the sparkly harlequin that modern decay has turned him into. He is the genuine original fool of the commedia. He is ragged and patched. He is an arrogant, cowardly, and wicked clown.
Harlequin mimicked the leader of the troupe and said,
As you can see, nature designed each of us for the part we play.
Pantaloon replied,
Only physically, my friend. Otherwise, we would not have so much trouble teaching this beautiful Leander how to be a lover. Then we have Pasquariel here. He is sometimes a pharmacist, sometimes a lawyer, and sometimes a servant. He is a friendly and helpful fellow. He is also an excellent cook because he is from Italy, which is a land of greedy eaters. Finally, you have me. As the father of the company, I play the roles of a father as Pantaloon. Sometimes I play a fooled husband or an ignorant, arrogant doctor. But I rarely need to use any name other than Pantaloon. Out of all of us, I am the only one who uses a real name. My name is Binet, sir. Now for the ladies. First in seniority is Madame over there.
He waved one of his large hands toward a plump, smiling blonde woman of 45, who was sitting on the bottom step of the traveling house.
She is our chaperone, mother, or nurse, depending on the role. She is known simply and grandly as Madame. If she ever had a real name, she has forgotten it long ago, which is probably for the best. Next, we have this lively girl with the turned-up nose and wide mouth. She is, of course, our bold maid Columbine. Finally, there is my daughter Clymene. She is a romantic lead with talent that cannot be matched outside the Comédie Française, where she unfortunately dreams of becoming a member.
The lovely Clymene tossed her nut-brown curls. She really was beautiful. She laughed as she looked across at André-Louis. He had noticed by now that her eyes were hazel instead of blue. Clymene said,
Do not believe him, sir. I am the queen here, and I prefer to be a queen here rather than a slave in Paris.
André-Louis said very seriously,
Mademoiselle will be queen wherever she graciously chooses to reign.
Her only answer was a shy but attractive glance from under her fluttering eyelids. Meanwhile, her father was yelling at the handsome young man who played the lovers. He shouted,
Did you hear that, Leander? That is the kind of speech you should practice.
Leander raised his lazy eyebrows. He asked,
That?
And shrugged.
That is just a common phrase.
André-Louis laughed in approval.
Monsieur Leander is quicker with his wits than you admit. There is cleverness in calling it a common fact to say Mademoiselle Clymene is a queen.
Some of the group laughed. Monsieur Binet was among them, laughing with friendly teasing. Binet said,
Do you think he is clever enough to mean it that way? Bah! Any cleverness from him is purely by accident.
The conversation became open to everyone, and André-Louis soon learned more about this traveling band. They were on their way to Guachin. They hoped to make good money at the fair that was opening next Monday. They planned to make a grand entrance into the town at noon. They would set up their stage in the old market and give their first performance on Saturday night. The play would be based on a new outline written by Monsieur Binet, which he believed would amaze the local country folk. Then Monsieur Binet let out a sigh and turned to the older, dark-skinned, thick-browed Polichinelle sitting on his left. Binet said,
But we will miss Felicien. I really do not know what we will do without him.
Polichinelle spoke with his mouth full.
Oh, we will manage somehow.
Binet replied,
You always say that no matter what happens, you know that you will never be the one doing the work.
Harlequin said,
It should not be difficult to replace him.
Binet said,
That is true if we were in a civilized place. But where among the country people of Brittany will we find a man with even his small skills?
Monsieur Binet turned to André-Louis.
He was our prop manager, our mechanic, our stage builder, our business manager, and he occasionally acted.
André-Louis said,
I assume he played the part of Figaro.
This earned him a laugh. Binet said,
So you know the work of Beaumarchais.
He looked at the young man with fresh interest. André-Louis replied,
I think he is fairly well known.
Binet said,
In Paris, certainly, but I never imagined his fame had reached the wild areas of Brittany.
André-Louis explained.
But I spent some years in Paris at the Lycée of Louis le Grand. I learned about his work there.
Polichinelle stated firmly.
He is a dangerous man.
Pantaloon agreed.
Indeed, you are right. He is clever. I will not deny that, although I find little use for writers myself. But he has a dark cleverness that spreads many of these dangerous new ideas. I think writers like him should be stopped.
André-Louis said.
Monsieur de la Tour d'Azyr would probably agree with you. He is the gentleman who turns this shared public land into his own private property just by deciding to do so.
André-Louis drained his cup. It had been filled with the cheap pale wine that the actors drank. That remark might have started an argument. However, it also reminded Monsieur Binet of the rules for camping there. He realized that their half-hour break was long over. He quickly jumped to his feet with an agility that was surprising for such a heavy man. He began issuing commands like a general on a battlefield. He shouted,
Come on, my boys. Are we going to sit here drinking all day? Time is passing. We have a lot to do if we are to enter Guichin at noon. Go and get dressed. We are packing up the camp in 20 minutes. Hurry up, ladies. Go to your carriage and make sure you look your best. The eyes of Guichin will soon be on you. The food in your bellies tomorrow will depend on the impression your looks make today. Get moving. Away with you.
The strict obedience this dictator demanded set everyone into a flurry of motion. They dragged out baskets and boxes to hold the plates and leftovers from their small meal. They cleared the ground in an instant. The three ladies headed to the carriage, which was set aside for their use. The men were already climbing into the house on wheels when Binet turned to André-Louis. Binet spoke dramatically.
We part ways here, sir. We are richer for having met you. We are your debtors and your friends.
He held out his chubby hand. André-Louis slowly shook his hand. He had been thinking quickly over the last few moments. He remembered the safety he had found from his pursuers by staying with this group. He realized that he could not find a better hiding place right now. He needed to stay hidden until the search for him faded away. André-Louis replied,
Sir, the debt is on my side. It is not every day that one has the joy of sitting down with such a famous and charming group.
Binet's small eyes stared suspiciously at the young man, looking for any sign of sarcasm. He found only honesty and genuine respect. André-Louis continued,
I leave you with regret. I am even more reluctant to leave because I do not see a strict need for us to part.
Binet frowned and asked,
What do you mean?
He slowly pulled his hand away, which André-Louis had held onto longer than necessary. André-Louis explained,
Look at it this way. You can see me as a wandering knight looking for adventure, with no real purpose in life right now. You should not be surprised that meeting you and your distinguished troupe has made me want to get to know you better. On your side, you mentioned that you need someone to replace your Figaro. You called him Felicien, I believe. While it might be bold of me to hope that I could handle such a varied and difficult job,
Binet interrupted him.
You are using that sharp humor of yours again, my friend.
He narrowed his small eyes and added thoughtfully,
Aside from that, we might be able to discuss this offer you seem to be making.
André-Louis said,
Unfortunately, we cannot put anything aside. If you take me on, you must take me exactly as I am. What other choice is there? As for this humor that you dislike, you might actually be able to turn it into a profit.
Binet asked.
How so?
André-Louis answered,
In several ways. For example, I might be able to teach Leander how to act like a lover.
Pantaloon burst into laughter.
You certainly do not lack confidence in your own abilities. You are not troubled by modesty.
André-Louis replied,
That means I possess the first quality needed for an actor.
Binet asked,
Can you act?
André-Louis thought about his speeches at Rennes and Nantes. He wondered if any of Pantaloon's stage improvisations had ever moved the hearts of crowds like his own speeches had. He answered,
I think I can when the situation calls for it.
Monsieur Binet thought for a moment. He asked,
Do you know much about the theater?
André-Louis answered.
I know everything.
Benet said.
Like I said, modesty will not be an obstacle in your career.
André-Louis argued.
But think about it. I know the works of modern writers like Beaumarchais, Eglantine, Mercier, and Chenier. Of course, I have also read Molière, Racine, and Corneille, along with many smaller French writers. When it comes to foreign authors, I am very familiar with Gozzi, Goldoni, Guarini, Bibbiena, Machiavelli, Secchi, Tasso, Ariosto, and Fedini. As for ancient writers, I know most of the work by Euripides, Aristophanes, Terence, and Plautus.
Pantaloon roared.
Enough!
André-Louis said.
I am not even close to finishing my list.
Benet replied.
You can save the rest for another day. In heaven's name, what could have made you read so many playwriters?
André-Louis explained.
In my own small way, I study human nature. A few years ago, I realized that the best way to study mankind closely is through the reflections of life shown in the theater.
Pantaloon spoke quite seriously.
That is a very original and deep discovery. It had never occurred to me, yet it is true, sir, that truth brings dignity to our art. It is clear to me that you are a man of many talents. That has been clear since the moment I first met you. I can read people. I knew your character from the moment you said good morning. Tell me this. Do you think you could help me prepare a play scenario from time to time? My mind is constantly busy with 1,000 details of running this group. It is not always as clear as I would like it to be for writing. Do you think you could help me with that?
André-Louis said.
I am very sure that I could.
Benet muttered.
Yes. I was sure you would say that. You would soon learn the other duties that belong to Felician. Very well. If you are willing, you can come along with us. I suppose you would want some salary?
André-Louis said.
If that is the usual practice.
Benet asked.
What would you say to 10 livres a month?
André-Louis replied.
I would say that it is hardly a grand fortune.
Benet said reluctantly.
I might go as high as 15, but times are hard.
André-Louis said.
I will make times better for you.
Benet replied.
I have no doubt you believe that, so we have an agreement?
André-Louis said dryly.
Perfectly.
And with that, he committed himself to a life in the theater. Chapter 3. The Comic Muse. The company's entrance into the town of Goachin was startling and noisy, leaving the local country people staring in shock. Benet had hoped for a triumphant arrival, but instead, they appeared to the locals as bizarre creatures from another world. First came the large traveling carriage, creaking and groaning along the road, pulled by 2 Flemish horses. Pantaloon drove it. He was a large, heavy man dressed in a tight scarlet suit under a long brown gown, and he wore a huge cardboard nose. Beside him on the driver's box sat Pierrot. He wore a white smock with sleeves that covered his hands, loose white pants, and a black skull cap. His face was painted white with flour, and he blew loud, harsh notes on a trumpet. On the roof of the coach sat Polichinelle, Scaramouche, Harlequin, and Pasquariel. Polichinelle wore black and white clothing in an old-fashioned style, with padded humps on his chest and back. He had a white ruffle around his neck and a black mask over the top half of his face. He stood in the middle with his feet spread wide for balance, and he struck a large drum forcefully. The other 3 sat at the corners of the roof with their legs hanging over the edge. Scaramouche dressed entirely in black in a 17th-century Spanish style, wearing a fake mustache and playing a guitar loudly and out of tune. Harlequin wore ragged clothes patched with every color of the rainbow. He had a leather belt and a wooden sword, and the top half of his face was smeared with soot. He crashed a pair of cymbals together from time to time. Pasquariel dressed as a pharmacist with a skull cap and a white apron. He made the crowd laugh by pumping a huge tin syringe that let out a sad squeak. Inside the carriage, the 3 women of the company sat at the windows and joked with the townspeople. Clymene, the leading lady, wore a beautiful flowered satin dress. She hid her natural curls under a round wig. She looked so much like a high society lady that you might wonder what she was doing with this strange group. Madam, playing the mother, also dressed in grand clothes, but she exaggerated her outfit to look ridiculous. She wore a massive headpiece decorated with flowers and small ostrich feathers. Columbine sat facing them with her back to the horses. She pretended to be shy, wearing a white muslin milkmaid hat and a striped green and blue dress. It was a miracle that the old carriage did not break down under their heavy and wild load. In its better days, it might have carried an important church official, but now it only groaned under the weight. Behind the carriage came the house on wheels. It was led by the tall, thin Rhodomont. He had painted his face red and wore fierce, terrifying mustaches. He wore tall leather boots and a leather jacket, and he dragged a huge sword from a red shoulder belt. He wore a wide felt hat with a messy feather. As he walked, he shouted loudly, challenging everyone and threatening terrible violence. Leandre sat alone on the roof of this wagon. He wore a blue satin outfit with ruffles, a small sword, powdered hair, beauty patches, a small telescope, and red-heeled shoes. He looked like a handsome, perfect gentleman from the royal court. The women of Guachin flirted with him as he passed by. He accepted their attention as a natural reward for his good looks and flirted back with enthusiasm. Like Clymene, he seemed completely out of place among the rough group of actors. André-Louis walked at the very end of the parade, leading the two donkeys that pulled the supply cart. He had insisted on wearing a fake nose, claiming it was for the show, but he really wanted to hide his identity. He kept his normal clothes on for the rest of his outfit. No one paid any attention to him as he walked quietly beside his donkeys. He was happy to stay unnoticed at the back of the group. The actors paraded around the town, which was already busy getting ready for the upcoming fair. They stopped every now and then, and the loud music would suddenly end. Then, Polichinelle would shout out in a booming voice that Mr. Benet's famous acting company would perform a new 4-act comedy called
The Heartless Father,
at 5 o'clock that evening in the Old Market. Eventually, they arrived at the Old Market. It was located on the ground floor of the town hall. The building had large archways on all 4 sides, opening it up to the weather. Most of these archways had been closed off with wooden boards. Only 2 archways were left open for the audience to enter the makeshift theater. Through these 2 openings, poor townspeople and cheap locals could sneak a peek at the performance without paying for a ticket. That afternoon was the hardest work André-Louis had ever done, because he was not used to manual labor. He spent the time helping to build and set up the stage at one end of the market hall. He quickly realized how difficult it would be to earn his salary of 15 livres a month. At first, 4 men worked on the stage, but Pantaloon mostly just shouted orders. Rhodomont and Leandre took off their fine costumes and helped André-Louis build the stage. Meanwhile, the other 4 actors ate dinner with the women. About half an hour later, the others came to take over the work. Then André-Louis and his group went to eat, leaving Polichinelle to manage and help with the rest of the building. They walked across the town square to the cheap little inn where they were staying. In the narrow hallway, André-Louis ran into Clymene. She had taken off her fancy costume and was back in her normal clothes.
And how do you like it?
She asked him boldly. He looked her straight in the eyes.
It has its benefits,
he replied. He spoke in his usual cold tone, which made it hard to tell if he meant what he said or not. She frowned.
You feel you need benefits already? I honestly felt I needed them from the start,
he said.
The promise of those benefits is what convinced me to join.
They were completely alone in the hallway, as the others had already gone into the dining room where the food was waiting. André-Louis understood a lot about men, but very little about women. He suddenly felt very aware of her as a woman, and he did not realize that she was quietly causing him to feel this way.
What are these benefits?
She asked, pretending to be completely innocent. He caught himself just before making a mistake.
15 livres a month,
he said quickly. She stared at him in confusion for a moment. He was very hard to read. Then she recovered her confidence.
Oh, and you get a bed and food,
she said.
Don't forget to count those because your dinner is getting cold. Aren't you coming in? Haven't you eaten yet?
He asked, and she wondered if he sounded a little too eager.
No,
She answered, looking back over her shoulder.
I waited. What did you wait for?
He asked hopefully.
I had to change my clothes, of course, you fool.
She answered rudely. She felt she had trapped him and could not resist insulting him. But André-Louis was the kind of man who always fought back.
And I see you left your good manners upstairs with your fancy clothes, miss. I understand,
He said. Her face turned bright red.
You are very rude.
She said weakly.
I have been told that often, but I don't believe it.
He opened the door for her and bowed. It was a grand, impressive bow that he had copied from an actor at the Comédie Française Theatre in Paris during his school days. He waved her inside.
After you, my lady. Thank you, sir.
She answered coldly. She sounded as close to sneering as a charming woman could be. She walked into the room and did not speak to him again for the entire meal. Instead, she spent all her time eagerly talking to Leandre. Poor Leandre could never act like a convincing lover on stage with her because he wanted so badly to be her lover in real life. André-Louis still ate his fish and dark bread with a good appetite. The food was poor, but many people were starving that winter, and poor food was normal. Since he had joined a struggling acting company, he decided to accept the difficulties without complaining.
Do you have a name?
Benet asked him during a quiet moment in the meal.
Turns out that I do.
He said.
I think it is Pervissimus. Pervissimus?
Benet asked.
Is that your family name? In a company like this, only the boss gets to use a family name. It would be wrong for the lowest member to use one, so I have chosen a name that fits me best. I think Pervissimus is perfect because it means the very least.
Benet found this funny. It was a clever joke. He felt sure that they would work well together on writing the new plays.
I will enjoy writing much more than building stages,
André-Louis said. However, he still had to go back to building that afternoon. He worked hard until 4 o'clock. Finally, the demanding Benet said he was happy with the stage. Benet then started setting up the lights, with André-Louis helping him again. The theater was lit by a mix of wax candles and lamps that burned fish oil. At 5 o'clock that evening, someone knocked 3 times to signal the start, and the curtain opened on
the heartless father.
André-Louis took over the job of the theater doorkeeper, replacing a man named Felicien who had left the company. He wore his Polichinelle costume and fake nose while he collected the tickets. Benet and André-Louis were both happy with this setup. Benet kept André-Louis's regular clothes to make sure the new worker did not steal the ticket money and run away. André-Louis knew exactly what Benet was doing. He gladly agreed because the costume hid his face from anyone from his past who might be in Guechin. The play was very boring, and the audience was small and quiet. There were only 27 people sitting on the benches in the front half of the market. 11 people paid 20 sous each, and 16 people paid 12 sous. Behind them stood a rough crowd of about 30 people who paid 6 sous each. In total, the company made 2 louis, 10 livres, and 2 sous. After Benet paid for renting the market, the lights, the company's hotel rooms for the weekend, there would barely be any money left to pay the actors. It made sense that Benet was not in a good mood that evening.
And what did you think of the play?
Benet asked André-Louis as they walked back to the inn.
It is possible that it could have been worse, but it is highly unlikely,
He answered. Benet stopped walking and stared at his companion in complete shock.
What?
He gasped.
Good heavens, you are certainly honest. I know honesty is not popular when dealing with fools,
André-Louis said.
Well, I am not a fool.
Benet said.
That is exactly why I am being honest. I am giving you the compliment of assuming you are an intelligent man, Mr. Benet. Oh, you are?
Benet snapped.
And who do you think you are to assume anything? You are acting too arrogant, sir.
Benet stopped talking and went back to sadly calculating his money in his head. But half an hour later at dinner, Benet brought the subject up again.
Our newest member, the wonderful Mr. Pervissimus,
Benet announced to the group,
had the nerve to tell me that our comedy could possibly have been worse. Probably could not.
Benet puffed out his fat cheeks, expecting everyone to laugh at the foolish new worker.
That is bad,
said the dark and sarcastic Polichinelle. He looked as serious as a judge.
That is bad. But what is much worse is that the audience seemed to agree with him. They are just a bunch of uneducated peasants.
Leandre sneered, tossing his handsome head.
You are wrong.
Harlequin told him.
You were born to be a lover, my friend, not a critic.
Leandre was a bit foolish, and he looked down at the small man with disgust.
And what were you born for?
He asked.
Nobody knows.
Harlequin admitted honestly.
And nobody knows why I was born, either. That is true for many of us, my friend. But why?
Benet interrupted, stopping the argument before it could start.
Why do you say Leandre is wrong? Generally speaking, because he is always wrong. But specifically, because I think the audience in Guechin is too smart and modern for a play like The Heartless Father. It would sound better,
interrupted André-Louis, who had started the whole debate,
if you said that The Heartless Father is too simple and old-fashioned for the audience in Guechin. Why, what is the difference?
Leandre asked.
I didn't say there was a difference in meaning. I just suggested it was a better way to explain the situation. The gentleman is trying to be clever.
Benet sneered.
Why is it a better way to explain it?
Harlequin asked.
Because it is much easier to update The Heartless Father to match the smart audience in Guechin than it is to make the Guechin audience dumb enough to enjoy The Heartless Father. Let me think about that.
Polichinelle groaned, holding his head in his hands. At the far end of the table, Clymene spoke up. She was sitting between Columbine and Madame.
So you would change the comedy, would you, Mr. Pervissimus?
She asked sharply. He turned to answer her mean comment.
I would suggest that it should be changed.
He corrected her, bowing his head slightly.
And how exactly would you change it, sir? Me? Oh, I would change it for the better. Of course you would.
She smiled with smooth sarcasm.
And how would you do that? Yes, tell us.
Benet shouted loudly, and then added.
Quiet, please, ladies and gentlemen. Quiet for Mr. Pervissimus.
André-Louis looked from Benet to Clymene and smiled.
Goodness,
he said.
I am trapped between a club and a knife. If I make it out of this alive, I will be lucky. Well, since you are forcing me to answer, I will tell you what I would do. I would go back to the original play and borrow more ideas from it. The original play?
Asked Benet, who was supposed to be the author.
I believe it is called Monsieur de Pourceaugnac, and it was written by the famous Molière.
Someone at the table giggled, but it was certainly not Benet. His feelings were badly hurt, and his small eyes showed that he was not the friendly man he pretended to be.
You are accusing me of stealing,
he said finally.
You are saying I stole Molière's ideas. There is always the chance,
André-Louis said calmly,
that two brilliant minds just happen to come up with the exact same ideas independently.
Benet stared closely at the young man for a moment. André-Louis looked completely calm and unbothered, so Benet decided to force him to answer clearly.
So you are not saying that I have been stealing from Molière? I am actually advising you to start stealing from him, sir.
André-Louis replied smoothly. Benet was horrified.
You are advising me to do that. You are telling me, Antoine Benet, to become a thief at my age. He is being incredibly rude.
Clymene said angrily.
Rude is the perfect word. Thank you for that, my dear. I trusted you, sir. You sit at my table, you have the honor of working in my company. You have the nerve to sit right to my face and tell me to become a thief. And not just any thief, but the worst kind of thief, a thief who steals ideas. This is unacceptable and insulting. I am afraid I have misjudged you, sir. Just as you have misjudged me. I am not the criminal you think I am, sir. I refuse to keep a man in my company who suggests I should become one. This is absolutely outrageous.
He was furious. His loud voice echoed through the small room. The rest of the actors sat quietly, looking a bit frightened. They all stared at André-Louis, who was the only person not bothered by Benet's angry speech.
Do you realize, sir,
André-Louis said very quietly,
that you are insulting the memory of a brilliant dead man? What?
Benet asked. André-Louis began to twist his clever argument.
You are insulting the memory of Molière, the greatest star of our stage and one of the greatest writers in our country. You are insulting him when you say it is evil to do exactly what he always did. No great writer has ever hesitated to borrow ideas. You surely don't think Molière ever worried about being completely original. You don't think the stories in his plays were entirely new, do you? They were borrowed, as you very well know, even though you seem to have forgotten it right now. They were borrowed from old Italian writers, who probably borrowed them from someone else entirely. Molière took those old stories and retold them using his own beautiful language. That is exactly what I am suggesting you should do. Your group is a company of improvisers. You make up the lines as you act, which is much more than Molière ever tried to do. If you really want to, you could go straight to the older writers like Boccaccio or Sacchetti. But even then, you wouldn't know for sure if you had reached the true original story.
André-Louis won the argument easily. He was a master at debating, and he could make the wrong side look right. The actors were impressed, especially Benet. Benet realized that André-Louis had just given him a perfect excuse to use against anyone who might accuse him of stealing plays in the future. Benet quickly backed down from his anger.
So you think?
Benet said after agreeing with everything André-Louis had said.
You think that our story of the heartless father could be improved by borrowing from Monsieur de Pourceaugnac? Now that I think about it, the two plays might be a little bit similar. I do. I definitely do, as long as you borrow the ideas carefully. Things have changed a lot since Molière's time.
Because of this conversation, Benet left the table soon after and took André-Louis with him. The two men stayed up late that night working together, and they spent the entire Sunday morning locked in a room writing. After dinner, Benet read the new, improved outline of
The Heartless Father.
To the actors, Benet claimed he had worked very hard on it with the advice of Mr. Parvissimus. The actors suspected who really wrote it before Benet even started reading, and they were completely sure after he finished. The new story had great energy and excitement. The actors who knew Molière's work realized that this new version was actually very different from Molière's original play. The original main character, which Polichinelle played, was now very small and unimportant. Polichinelle was very upset about this. However, all the other characters had become much more important, except for Leandre, whose part stayed the same. The two biggest roles were now Scaramouche, who played a clever trickster named Sprigandini, and Pantaloon, who played the father. There was also a funny new part for Rhodomont, who played a loud, bragging bully hired by Polichinelle to beat up Leandre. Because Scaramouche was now so important, the play was renamed
Figaro Scaramouche.
Benet had fought hard against the new title, but his strict new writing partner, who was using his huge knowledge of books, had forced Benet to agree.
You have to stay current with the times, sir.
André-Louis had told him.
In Paris, the writer Beaumarchais is incredibly popular. The character Figaro is famous all over the world right now. We should borrow some of his fame. It will attract a big audience. People will come to see a play with Figaro in the title, even if they wouldn't come to see a dozen plays called The Heartless Father. So let's give the character of Figaro to one of our actors and put his name in the title. But since I am the boss of the company,
Benet had started to argue weakly.
If you choose to ignore what is best for your business, you will soon be a boss with no money and no company. What good is that? Can the character of Pantaloon really act like the clever Figaro? You are laughing. Of course you are, because the idea is silly. The only character who can act like Figaro is Scaramouche, because they are basically identical twins.
Benet finally gave in to his bossy new writer. Benet felt better when he realized that, as a theater expert, he had just bought a play for 15 livres a month that would soon make him a lot of gold coins. The actor's reaction to the new play proved that Benet had made the right choice. Everyone liked it except Polichinelle. He was angry because his role was much smaller now, so he complained that the new story was stupid.
Ah, so you think my work is stupid, do you?
Benet yelled at him.
Your work?
Polichinelle asked, clearly mocking him.
I am sorry. I didn't realize you were the true author. Well, realize it now. You and Mr. Pervissimus were working very closely together on this writing.
Polichinelle said, hinting at the truth.
And what if we were? What are you trying to say? I am saying you just brought him in to sharpen your pencils, of course. I will cut your ears off if you don't show some respect.
The furious Benet screamed. Polichinelle stood up slowly and stretched.
Good heavens,
He said.
If Pantaloon is going to start acting like Rhodomont the bully, I think I will just leave.
He walked out of the room confidently before Benet could even think of something to say.